In order to learn the secrets of rogue agents, I had to die. But by dying I was able to study their builds and learn their 8 dirty secrets. And one final eye-opening revelation you need to know. While I was not surprised to see Bakaro's holster, Fox's prayer knee pads and Contractor's gloves in the most used named items, there was one that stood out that is not used at all in PvE. The Matador, a Walker Harris backpack, which is a great brand for DPS and comes with the talent perfect Adrenaline Rush. The bonus armor that refreshes every 5 seconds is great for survivability, particularly when taking on multiple enemies. And so it should not be a surprise to anyone that by far and away the most used backpack talent was Adrenaline Rush, appearing in half of the builds I studied. There were no other backpack talents that really stood out. And the same was true of chest talents, with one talent being used in more than 70% of the builds. And it wasn't Obliterate, which was a distant second. No, Unbreakable is the talent that is so widely used that it's nearly essential. Brand set builds made up the majority of the rogue builds that I spied on, with Strikers the only gear set I ever saw. Excluding named items, Grupo, Seska and Providence were very popular, being 3 of the best DPS brand sets. Sokolov, Fenris and Badger Tough were also widely used, depending on which weapons rogues preferred. Speaking of weapons, I was amazed to find that one weapon I was expecting to be hugely popular was not. The Ouroboros, the M870 and Super 90 shotguns, and the best burst damage assault rifle in the game, the FAMAS, were widely used. But St. Elmo's, which for a time seemed to be in every build I came across, was not. This is probably due to the talent on the Ouroboros that lets rogues use the shock effect against the St. Elmo user, and with its higher burst damage, that makes the St. Elmo a liability. There was only one exotic that was used in more than half of the rogue builds. As we saw with the backpack and chest piece talents, survivability is much more important in the Dark Zone than it is in PvE. Kratos Mask, Memento backpack and even the Ninja Bite Messenger backpack are common in PvE, but there is only one exotic that delivers the survivability and damage you need to take on rogues. The Catharsis Mask, which builds up weapon damage as you take damage, before dropping a healing cloud that will heal half of your total armor. And how much is enough armor? Well, more than 50% of rogues were packing 1.9 million, which comes from running 6 armor cores. The average across all rogue agents was 1.7 million. All red core builds should not apply to the Dark Zone. The most used skill is the Defender drone, so it was interesting to see that the EMP Sticky was the second, a direct counter to the drone. The Scanner Pulse and Decoy were also well used to first find enemies and then lose them. This I was not expecting. In PvE, specializations are whatever you fancy using, with none of them being really game changing. But for rogues, there was one specialization that was used in over 70% of builds. Firewall. This comes with an extremely strong armor kit that can change the face of any encounter, along with a mod that delivers just a little extra damage. There are a ton of different rogue builds, and in most cases ability, experience and understanding of your build are what will win a firefight. But if you want a build that will give you a fighting chance to take on rogues, I would go with something like this one. Ouroboros, a FAMAS with Optimist, Catharsis Mask, Sokolov and Seska brand sets with Unbreakable and Adrenaline Rush talents, Contractor's gloves, Bakaro's holster and Fox's prayer knee pads. If you do have a well-rolled Matador, which I don't, then I would use that in this build as well. A Defender drone provides a little bit of protection, and an EMP Sticky or even a Jammer Pulse will take out enemies' skills. The build is finished off with the Firewall specialization for its armor kit to be popped when entering or at a good point in battle. But this build will only give you a chance, because there is one thing that I found overwhelmingly to be the case that gives rogues an enormous edge over non-PvPers. With an average expertise level of 17, rogues will have an edge with extra weapon damage and armor that, unless you are really prepared to invest in a PvP build, will more often than not leave you looking for a respawn location. And that's why I still recommend non-VPers use a build that gives you the tools to avoid rogues and get away from them when challenged. So do check out this video here that has everything you need to farm the Dark Zone safely.